Welcome back everyone, I'm Briareos Karensky and this time I'll walk you through Code of Princess as our heroes hack and slash their way to victory. Published and developed by the small Agatsuma Entertainment Company, Code of Princess boasts an excellent pedigree, that of Guardian Heroes, a scrolling beat-em-up first published on the Saturn and then released a few months ago on the Xbox Live Arcade. The two games are very similar, so anyone who played Guardian Heroes will find himself or herself at home. This also means that the comparisons are unavoidable and you'll have to forgive me if, like Guardian Heroes, comes out a bit too often. Let's start with a brief description of the game mechanics. A and B are used for attacks, which can be chained in combos. Adding down or forward the inputs via the D-pad allows to end a combo with a finisher or perform special attacks. X temporarily increase attack power. The duration of this effect depends on how many magic points, represented by the blue bar on the upper left side of the screen, a character has. R and L are used to guard and in conjunction with the D-pad are used to backdash and change rails. All stages are composed by 3 rails, independent rows where the player and the enemies can switch freely, but most attacks will only affect at the rail a character is on. Switching rails is an important part of the game and allows to dodge powerful attacks or to surprise strong opponents. And then there's the most important mechanic of the game, lock on. By pressing Y, the player-controlled character performs a special attack, and if it hits an enemy, said enemy is locked on. The first effect is that certain attacks will home onto locked targets even when on different rails. The second effect is that locked enemies receive more damage, indicated by green flashes. And when coupled with X, they receive even more damage, black flashes. Managing lock-on and magic points, especially with close-range fighters, is paramount to beat the most powerful bosses and quickly dispatch mobs. The system is fun to use, and though all characters will most probably rely on 1 or 2 combos, it's deep enough to keep the game interesting until the end. Unfortunately, the system is open to easy exploitation. Enemies will tend to jump right next to the player's character when on nearby rails, which lends to a lock-on, followed by a quick combo where only the finisher is empowered to save magic points, but still dealing huge damage. While mobs usually place 1 or more enemies on the player's back, forcing crow managing or a quick jump to another rail, bosses acting without support are painfully open to this tactic. Their damage output might be high, but it's very easy to lock single targets in an endless loop, greatly reducing the overall difficulty of the game. As the player is also rewarded points to advance stats at each level up, it's possible to grind the way out of any stage, which leads us to another problem. Each mission is relatively short, most will end within 5 minutes, which is perfect for an handheld, but due to their length, all stages feel limited. There are several occasions of what would have been a complete stage in any other beat-em-up is divided into 2 or 3 missions, with the boss holding a mission on its own. Not only this breaks the flow of the game, but also reduces or completely removes the thrill of completing a stage and managing resources like health or magic points refillers. Enemy balance is somewhat off as well. The later stages have enemies with high magic damage output, and characters with a high mind stat will have incredibly easy time clearing such stages and bosses. Magic defense and offense are driven by a single stat, mind, and casters like Zozo will be able to beat the game without breaking a sweat. Magic points recharge over time and their recharge gets boosted by standard combos, plus magic restoring items are not rare. Not common, and many time casters will run out of mana, but it's not as dire as it might sound. On the other hand, Solange and other class range fighters will have to grind mind up a bit or die in just a couple of hits. Despite these shortcomings, Code of Princess is very well worth playing. The story mode comprises a good number of missions with different kind of enemies, and the story is enjoyable, although nothing new. Progression through the story is linear, there are no branching paths like Guardian Heroes had, and except for just a couple of missions, all four main characters play the same stages. Complementing the single-player mode, there is a single mission and time attack modes, which can be tackled with the four main and the four sub-characters. And then there's multiplayer. I still find strange that games on a Nintendo console have online multiplayer, and I'm quite pleased that Code of Princess allows up to 4 players to participate in all single-player modes, plus an exclusive versus mode where participants can use all characters in the game, and I mean all. Last boss? Check. Standard grunt? Check. Tiny bat? Check. Old lady seen in 2 cutscenes? Waiting for you. As some might remember, this mode is also available in Guardian Heroes, but I have already said that the 2 titles share a lot, so it shouldn't come as a surprise if the most loved game modes are present in Code of Princess as well. The 3D effect, not shown here for obvious reasons, is very subtle. Think Kid Icarus Uprising or Star Fox 64. Graphics are entirely done with sprites. They lack fine details up close, but they work well throughout the game, without getting too blurry or pixelated when the camera zooms in or out. Camera controls are automated and, except for a few cases, it's spot on. Even at the lowest zoom level, it's possible to clearly understand where even the smallest enemy is. Animations are excellent for being sprite-based, and there are a lot of effects flying around. However, during the most chaotic sequences, the game slows down a lot, but since the normal rhythm is slow-paced, these slowdowns are in the end only a cosmetic problem. Story is told through the usual static portraits and, well, they have nothing to do with the character design proudly shown on the game's cover. I can accept that sprites could look a bit different from the artworks due to their small size, but the portraits are in anime style, where sprites have soft shadings and the artworks use a very distinct style. While showing the artbook I already complained about this, but in the game things feel a little worse than on paper. I don't mean that the graphics are bad, they just don't seem to have a constant art direction. Voice samples are adequate, but just like every other fighting game, shouts associated with moves are usually 1 or 2 and they get boring very quickly. Game menus are mostly in Japanese, with stats in English. Tutorials are easy to follow despite the language, and Code of Princess is not exactly a title needing a deep knowledge of Japanese language. Story details will be lost, but it follows the usual clichés. What's not usual are the names. I have already mentioned Allegro, but Mr. T's real name is Draken T. He uses Mr. T because it's simpler, and Solange's sword is called Deluxe Caliber. I still have to understand the main bad guy's name, but it's something along Destiny Destroy, so the story might be interesting due to the silliness of the names. Closing thoughts. Code of Princess is a decent game, though I was expecting a bit more. The biggest letdown is the lack of challenge derived from an abusable system, short stages and lack of enemies AI, which are varied enough and can mount up a decent assault, but they lack combined tactics. The addition of an online multiplayer with both PvP and PvE is excellent, but with the story mode offering a low level of challenge and no branching paths, there is little incentive to tackle it with a friend. The PvP part is potentially the mode with the longest lifespan, though as things stand now, it's kinda hard to find someone to play with. In the end, Code of Princess is a slightly better than average game with hints of brilliance, ultimately dulled down by the lack of challenge. That's it for today. Briarios Karensky, over and out. Also blame the platform your game is on.